Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the McGonagall Boxing Podcast. So a week has gone on since the Bertebiev Calum Smith fight. I didn't want to rush in with my analysis because I thought, you know what, I don't want to be over emotional. And I felt initially I was a bit harsh on Calum Smith. I thought, looking back, I think he gave it his best. He really did. He just spent too much time being backed up. Which is easier said than done, though, isn't it? Because Bertebiev, of course, is a beast and he will put you on the back foot. But if you watch Calum Johnson, and even times Anthony Yard, the way to get to Bertebiev, and I know it's easier said than done, like I say, is put him on the back foot. He's a bit like a mini Mike Tyson. And I'm a huge fan of Mike Tyson, but he couldn't fight on the back foot. And Evander Holyfield realised this. And Bertebiev is the same. I think Bivol can beat Bertebiev. What I saw on Saturday night, I think Bertebiev is good enough to take the centre of the ring and just jab and outbox Bertebiev. If you take the jab from him, you've got a chance. What was remarkable was Bertebiev was out jabbing Calum Smith, who has like a 6-inch reach advantage and like a 4 or 5 inch height advantage. It was unbelievable to see. I mean, Calum Smith was not using his jab at all. And that's, I don't understand what Buddy McGirt, someone who of his calibre, his experience, is playing at. I mean, Smith should have been taking us in that ring, piercing that jab, trying to get Bertebiev back. But I mean, he didn't, and he got bullied. He got bullied at the back of the ropes. And as soon as you saw Calum Smith, he was from round one being backed up, you're like, oh my God, this is a matter of time. And it's nothing you can do. He's got mauled and lent on. And, that's where Bertebiev is at. That's where he's comfortable at. He's playing field, I mean, to be fair though, Calum Smith did start to come back a little bit in round 6, caught him for a nice uppercut and that famous left hook. But, I mean, I've got to agree with his brother, Liam. I mean, he hit him, Antonio Bellew, who I don't always agree with, but, I mean, he hit him with that check left hook, which obviously knocked out an old George Groves. And Bertebiev didn't flinch. And it reminded me very much of the Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns, the famous quote by Larry Merchant. He said, when Thomas Hearns hit Marvin Hagler with his famous overhand right in the first round, and Hagler did not budge, he knew the fight was over like that. And it's exactly like I saw with Calum Smith. Caught him in literally the first round with a left hook. Bertebiev didn't budge. Didn't budge. 6th round, caught him with a check left hook. Again, the punch that's knocked many people out. Didn't budge. Just walked on. Carried on walking on, and I thought this fight's over. And he just wore Calum Smith down. And it was, to be fair, he did catch Smith with an overhand right, which Smith didn't see, but it was just a barrage, wasn't it? I think if Smith would have taken that punch in round 1, he would have survived that. But he was just overwhelmed and, ultimately exhausted by that point. And, it's nothing he could do. It was a surprise for me. I thought Smith would use his size, his strength, and I thought he'd make a real dent in Bertebiev because, Yard hurt him and Calum Johnson a few years back floored him and nearly had him out of there. So I thought Smith was just equally as big a puncher as them two and bigger. But actually, I think what you saw was Calum Smith, he's very lean, light heavy. He's somewhere in between a super and light heavy, isn't he? I don't think he's a natural light heavy. Whereas Bertebiev, he's shorter, but he's stockier, he's stronger. He carries that weight so much better than Calum Smith, who just looks skinny compared. He doesn't look physically the same, does he, as Bertebiev? It's like a man versus boy, and he just got bullied. The strength-wise was a major factor, which I didn't think would happen. I thought Smith, like many, would be too big and would punch too hard with that left hook. I thought the left hook would do serious damage, but he hit Bertebiev 3 or 4 times with it, and an uppercut, which I think got Bertebev's attention, to be fair, I think in round 4, but again, just walked right through it, and I didn't think that would happen. And then he just got beat up, but, I thought Smith would use his jab better. I didn't see him laying on the ropes like he did far too much. I mean, Buddy McGirt, I have to take questions of him. What was he telling Calum Smith? Because, make no mistake about it, that wouldn't have happened back in the day with Joe Gallagher. He'd have been screaming at Smith, get off them ropes, take the centre of the ring, use your size, use your jab, and then counter him when he comes in. But, like I say, it's easier said than done. And Smith, watching them highlights again, showed great heart. I mean, he was getting a beating in round 4. He stayed up. He was getting a punishment in round 6. And it's not nice, is it? Someone on you, and you know you can't make a dent in, and they just carry on barraging, backing you up, hitting you. Even the jabs were stinging. Berbetev's jab was phenomenal. It was much better than I've ever seen. Just stinging Smith constantly. And, eventually he wilted. But, I mean, like I say, Calum Smith, you don't want to be harsh on him. He was a world champion. But, he beat an old George Groves. There's very, very contentious thoughts about him beating John Ryder. It's very close. Who's a solid world-level campaigner, but he's not elite. Obviously, he got bossed and battered by Canelo, but, you have to say that was during the COVID times where he couldn't train, so you gave him that allowance. He's moved up to light heavy, but let's be honest, he's beaten C-list fighters, and then he's gone on with Bertebiev. He needed at least 1 or 2 fights before fighting Bertebiev. For me, he needed to go and fight at B level, and even an A level fight before he goes to the cream of the crop. An A+ fight like Bertebiev, you need to really get yourself ready for. And he's been too inactive, Calum Smith. He's been in and out. He fights once every 18 months over the last 5 years since he beat George Groves. I thought he'd be the next, not superstar, because I don't think he's got the charisma for that, but, the next great champion. I thought he'd be fighting 2-3 times a year. And you look at it, he's probably fought 4 times in them 5 years. I mean, and he's gone 18 months without fighting, and he goes straight in and fights Bertebiev. Yes, I know the fight got cancelled, Bertebiev got injured, then Calum Smith got injured, I get that, so it would have been sooner, but still, you have to question that matchmaking. I know they want to strike when the iron's hot, but he wasn't ready, was he? He wasn't at his best, and he wasn't sharp enough, and he was ring rusty. And Bertebiev had been out a year, and you think of 39, but he's a beast, isn't he? And he lives the life. I don't think Calum Smith trains like Bertebiev does when they're not fighting. That's the big difference. I think Bertebiev, a bit like Khabib in UFC, just trains. He stays in shape. He stays in fighting shape. Whereas Calum Smith, I think, he's got family, he's got other interests. I don't think he's living the life. I think he trains hard them 7 weeks, but you can't make up for 7 weeks when someone's training all year round. Just can't do it. And that's what ultimately we saw on last Saturday night in Canada. Someone who's been out the ring a year but still training hard against someone who's been out 18 months and probably only started training 2 months ago. He didn't look right. He looked rusty. And, it's only when he really got put on that he started to try and throw something back. But by then it was too late. So, listen, I don't want to knock Calum Smith. I think, is he going to retire? He was kind of alluding to that, wasn't he, post-fight? And at 33... you wonder, is he going to drop down to British level or even European level, fight Boatsi? Yard would be a good fight. Maybe that's a big money fight. Maybe he wants one more crack. But, it's hard for him to look. He's not going to beat Bivol, is he? He's not going to beat Bertebiev, I don't think. So, them world titles at light heavy, unless one of them moves up, which I can't see happening, he's going to be tied up. But Bertebev's going to retire eventually. He's 39. So maybe he wants to stick around, for 2 years and see what happens, have a few fights and try and go again when Bertebiev retires. That would be something I would allude to if I was Calum Smith. Have a few big money domestic fights against Yard, Boatsi, even Richards. Less risk but tough fights, but would still sell well because it's all about the money as well, of course, and he's alluded to that. He wants good paydays towards the end of his career, so that might keep him on. But if I'm being honest, I think the Smith brothers know when to call it a day. You look at Stephen, you look at Paul, and obviously Liam's, his talking sense comes to an end. So I expect Calum Smith to retire now. It's a shame. I'd like to have seen him fight Boatsi or Yard, especially Boatsi, who's coming up to world level. But make no mistake about it, I don't think any of them guys are Bertebiev level, and I don't think they do anything against Bertebiev or Bivol. So, you're fighting the cream of the crop, and he just wasn't ready. But ultimately, Calum Smith will be known as a solid world-level fighter, but just not elite. Whereas Bertebiev is elite. But is he beatable? I believe so. But you've got to fight him right. You've got to take that centre of the ring. And, you've got to out-jab him. And you've got to bully him on that back foot. Because when you do, he doesn't look like the same fighter. But easier said than done. He's relentless. And right now, he's number 1 in the division. But I don't think Bivol has got anything to really worry about. I think, in terms of, can he beat Bertebiev? I think he can. let me rephrase that. Yes, obviously, I'm not saying Bertebiev is not dangerous. Of course he is, but Bivol can beat him in my eyes. I think Bertebiev would start favourite in many eyes, and he's physically more threatening. But Bivol is a supreme boxer, supreme, and he's not going to be allowing himself to get hit and backed up like Smith did. So for me, it's a real 50-50 fight. And anyone writing Bivol off is mad, because I saw a few chinks in Bertebev's armour. He can get hit, but he's got an iron chin. But at 39, eventually he's going to slow down. No signs of it yet. And I know the Smith brothers are alluding to a failed drugs test and a drugs cheat, and Tony Bellew's saying that. But, ultimately, if you're found innocent, you're found innocent, and he got cleared to fight. So you have to take that on the chin and accept that, he at the moment he's a clean fighter. But I think Bivol's got a great chance. I really do. I think Bertebev's there to be hit. But Bertebiev, if Bivol's not switched on 100% and he's absolute best, then Bertebiev can walk him down and stop him. There's no question about that. I think Bertebev's a phenomenal fighter, but he's not unbeatable. But you've just got to fight him right. And sadly for Calum Smith, he didn't fight him right at all. And he got bullied from round one. He wasn't sharp enough. He wasn't tactically good enough. And ultimately, he wasn't good enough. And he didn't have the power at light heavy that he had at the super middle. And that was evident because Bertebiev took it and just walked through him, which has never happened to Calum Smith before, of course, except for the Canelo fight. A lot to think about. Bertebiev Bivol next. That's going to be huge. Probably fight of 2024, let's be honest. Either that or Usyk Fury. So hold on for them big fights. The Riyadh season's been fantastic, and you've got to hold your hands up to the Excellency, who's done a fantastic job in getting these big money fights. In Riyadh, credit to him. It really is kind of taking over now. It used to be Vegas, and now it's the Saudis. So credit to them. They've got the money. If they're getting Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren together, they can get any fight together, trust me. So bring it on, Bivol, Bertebiev. It's going to be a great fight. And as for Smith, I think he's going to retire. But, he can't hold his head up. He didn't bottle it. He didn't choke. He tried to have it a go. He tried to stand and trade with Bertebiev at times. But ultimately, he's outclassed, overmatched. And I expect him to retire now. All right, guys. I'll catch you soon again on the McGonagall Boxing Podcast. Bye for now.